Chapter 4 Anxiety with Tic Tacs. I don't know about any of you, but when I'm nervous about something, I tend to think about it all day, unless I come up with a complicated mental trick to distract me. And even then, I'm still actually thinking about the thing by not thinking about it, if that makes any sense. It's like if someone came up to you and said, "All right, now whatever you do, don't think of the color red." You'd try to picture a different color or repeat a recipe over and over in your head or count to 100 or 59 or somewhere in the back of the mind you'd be going, yellow, orange, red, dope, 3 eggs, separated, 5 slices of American cheese, red, dang, 117, 118, look at Renee's red lipstick, And that's how my October 7th went. I worked mightily to think about anything other than Jeffrey's gushing nose. But the distractions were truly pointless. In homeroom, after I figured out that my breath was going to present a challenge, I looked in the pocket of my Trapper Keeper for my box of Tic Tacs and found that it was about 3/4 full. I quickly popped in a Tic Tac, orange, which I'm not even sure helps your breath anyway, and ran off to first period. Miss Palmer's class. I did all the usual take out your notebook stuff, but then became lost in my own little don't think about Jeffrey world. I used a trick that is pretty powerful for me. I came up with a really complex math problem to solve in my head. A boy has a box of 40 Tic Tacs and the box is 3/4 full. The Tic Tacs need to last through an entire school day and a bus ride home. The school day has 7 periods. Each period is 44 minutes long, with 3 minutes for passing between classes. Additionally, there is a 22-minute lunch period and a 4-minute afternoon homeroom period. This bus ride takes 15 minutes, including the wait for the bus, boarding, the actual time in transit. If the boy wants to make his Tic Tacs last until he arrives at home, how many minutes must he wait between Tic Tacs? So while everyone else was writing whatever the day's journal was supposed to be, I was agonizing over the details of this math problem. Okay, there are how many 3-minute passing times? 7, not counting the one before lunch, so 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Plus the time in class, which is 44 minutes, times 7. Okay, that's 308 minutes right there. And lunch is another 22 minutes. Plus the bus is like 15 minutes. Wait, do I have to eat Tic Tacs during class? Who cares about my breath when I'm alone at my desk? But there is group work in some. Stephen, would you like to read your journal entry aloud? No, thank you, Miss Palma. Stephen, I know I paraphrased that as a question, but it was really a command. Yes, but mine is, private. Private, Stephen? Yes, Miss Palma, private. Stephen, again with the capital letters. Yes, private. Through my haze of math and memory, I gradually noticed that the class was cracking up. Stephen, I respect privacy as much as the next teacher, but how private can your thoughts on this question be? Well, as it turns out, the topic was, should foreign languages be taught in middle school? Things like that happened all day. After math, just as I popped into 7th Tic Tac, Renee Albert said to me, Stephen, you're so, out of it today. Are you suffering from some kind of traumatic head injury or something? Well, sort of. Are you sort of recovering, or was it sort of an injury? Both. My brother fell off a stool this morning and... Oh, sorry, Stephen. I have to go talk to Jen and Steph. Wait up. While Renee was attractively speed walking away, Annette suddenly appeared next to me. It wasn't the first time I noticed this, how Renee kind of swished around in a cloud of perfume. And Annette just popped up like some spastic hand puppet. Stephen, I heard about Jeffy. What happened? Annette sometimes watches Jeffrey on weekends. He fell and... Yeah, I heard you telling the princess that part. Well, his head hit the counter in the kitchen and his nose was bleeding. A lot? Yeah. My mom went charging out with him. They went to the emergency room, and now I'm going to be in trouble. But I didn't even do... Is he okay? Was he really scared? I don't know. And the bell rang, which meant I'd be late to social studies, and Annette would be late to science. While Annette ran down the empty hall, it suddenly hit me that I hadn't even thought about how Jeffrey was feeling. I didn't really want to think too hard about it because I knew he'd be terrified. Plus, now I had to go get a late pass, which probably meant I'd get detention. So Jeffrey was getting me in trouble again, as usual. Obviously, you guys can see Steven's slightly selfish in the way he's acting right now. Seems like he's more caring about getting in trouble um, rather than how Jeffrey's actually doing. The high point of my day was my drum lesson. We have this thing called opportunity period, or OP. It's the last period of the day. If you don't owe any work in any of your classes or need tutoring or have detention, you do fun stuff. Most of the kids like to go to gym during OP. The track, the weight room, the pool are all open. And you can play basketball or volleyball too. But some go to art or choir. And of course, every chance I get, I go to the band room. A few times a week, I used to get individual lessons on the drum set with the band teacher, Mr. Watras, during OP. On this particular day, Mr. W got called to the office for something, so I had about 15 minutes to just play the drums, with nobody else around. I started out with some simple beats. When my hands and feet started to loosen up, I switched over to this really complicated Latin rhythm I'd been working on. It took a lot of concentration to keep all four limbs moving independently of each other, which was perfect. It meant I wasn't thinking about Jeffrey's fall or late passes or even Renee Albert. I was just playing. After keeping the beat going for 5 minutes or so, I burst into a big solo. I always think of it that way. Here comes Steven, bursting into his big solo. Watch those hands, they're too quick to follow. Holy cow, this kid's a magician. Like there's a Monday Night Football commentator standing over my left shoulder. Anyway, I really was flying. I started with both hands doing a kind of shuffled march on the snare drum pretty quickly. As I gradually got louder, I started flicking little quick shots on the high toms. Then I threw in some bombs with my bass drum foot. Soon, I had an incredibly fast paradiddle going between my left foot and my right foot. While my left foot was keeping time in the hi-hat cymbals, my right hand was going back and forth between the ride cymbal and the floor tom. The door opened and I opened my eyes and looked up. I never open my eyes when I'm practicing by myself. My private teacher always used to say, if you don't know where the drums are, you're probably playing the wrong instrument. Mr. W is back. Behind him, I could see a few kids I didn't know. Probably sixth graders on their way somewhere. Looking in. They started clapping when I looked their way, which is pretty cool. I hadn't been showing off on purpose, but I can't say I minded the applause. I stood up and took a quick bow for them. Mr. W smiled and complimented me on my showmanship. That's yet another cool thing about music. If you show off in sports, you're a hot dog. If you show off in class, you're a brainiac. But if you show off in drumming, people love it. Mr. W told me my Latin rhythm was sounding a little stiff and put a CD on for me to listen to. It was this old jazz album by Dizzy Gillespie. This should help you out. It's a cat named Dizzy. Yes, he said cat. Music teachers have their own lingo. Dizzy Gillespie, the trumpet player, right? My grandfather once told me about him. Yeah, this is called Cubana Beat, Cubana Bop. When the tune came in, I couldn't believe it. There were probably about 5 drummers on the track, and they were going crazy. The conga drum was especially wild, playing insane fill-ins all over the place. At the same time, the trumpets were blasting like a herd of elephants, with Dizzy's horn flying high above everything else. Then, just when it seemed there couldn't possibly be any way to get more energy into the music, everyone stopped playing except the conga guy, and a man's voice started chanting in what sounded like Spanish. The chant got faster and faster. The congas got louder and louder. A whole circus of men came in, shouting Cubana Beat, Cubana Bop, over and over, and the horns all roared back to life. Then, with one last explosion from the conga player, the song was over. Could you feel that, Pez? That song I'm posting on my Google site, so you guys can listen to that song. It's an actual song by Dizzy Gillespie. Super entertaining. Mr. W is the conductor of the All-City High School Jazz Band, which is how I got in. He knew that nickname Peasant bugged me, so one day he started calling me Pez for short, which is much better. Could I feel it? Oh my God, that was the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. Good, you have about 7 months to get that conga part down. What do you mean? Well, I've decided that the spring concert's going to be all Latin music, and that song is going to be the finale. Would you like to play the congas on it? Of course I was dying to play that part. Mr. W is one of those rare teachers who can actually take a joke. I don't know, Mr. W. I was really hoping to play cowbell on it, or maybe, I don't know, the triangle. Get out of here, kid. You're going to miss your bus. I triumphantly popped my second to last Tic Tac in my mouth and strolled out of the room, whistling Cubana Beat, Cubana Bop. My temporary good cheer lasted until I got on the bus. Renee Albert caught my eye. Well, okay, she always catches my eye, and spoke, How's the brain injury? Which brought me back to reality really, really fast. I kept going toward the back of the bus without saying anything to Renee and sat down next to Annette. I had planned to tell her all about Cubana B, Cubana Bop, but now my mind is back on Jeffy. I heard that, Stephen. It's really cool that you were confident enough to just ignore her. Ignore her? I didn't ignore her. I was just too stupid to think of a comeback. And now I have to go home and find out what happened with my brother and how long I'd be grounded for making breakfast. What? Long story. When Jeffy fell this morning, I was making him oatmeal. I had him up on the stool, and my mom thinks he shouldn't be on there unless somebody's like an inch and a half away. So if he needs stitches or something, even though I was being nice by making him what he wanted while the rents were sleeping, I'm going to get blamed. Well, your mom was right in a way. What do you mean? He did fall, right? So he wasn't safe on the stool. Thanks, Annette. Thanks a lot. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now. You're a very inspiring person, you know that? I was just trying to what? Show me the light so I can be saved from being such a horrible brother? So little angel Jeffy can be saved from my evil cooking schemes? I didn't mean to make you feel bad. Well, you did. I've been worrying about this all stupid day. By this point, we were pulling up to my spot. I got up to storm off the bus, but I had to wait until Renee got her stuff together in the middle of the aisle. Plus, Renee took her time walking off too, so I had to plod along behind her. It's hard to storm and shuffle at the same time, let me tell you. When I got off the bus, I watched Renee glide away. Then I looked up at Annette as the bus started to move. Maybe it was a slanted fall sun glaring off the window, but it almost seemed like she was crying. Great. I let myself into the house and found my mom standing in the foyer, like she'd been waiting for me. When I might be in trouble, I usually try to speak first, before the rents start in on me. So I plunged right in. Mom, I've been worried all day. Is Jeffrey okay? She said in this strange, soft voice. Stephen, your brother's really sick. It's a tough part of the book right here. Was it because the fall this morning had nothing to do with it. Whew, I'm off the hook. But he's really sick. And this was the absolute worst thing about last October 7th. The one moment I'll never forgive myself for. When my mother began to tell me that my baby brother had leukemia, my first feeling was relief. Whew. So, obviously, huge part of the book. So that bloody nose obviously ended up being more than just a bloody nose. And Stephen is dealing with a conflict with himself because he's angry with himself because he's feeling like he's relieved because he thought he was going to get in trouble when he should really be feeling bad about his brother. Obviously, probably really hasn't hit him yet how serious things are with Jeffrey and his leukemia. I'm going to post a video about what leukemia actually is on my Google site, so you guys can check that out. It is a form of cancer. So it'd be really good to take a look at that so you have an understanding as we go through all this. And there'll be some more links up there as well that'll help you kind of further understand the chapter. But our next chapter is a big one too. So this was chapter 3, and I'll be getting into chapter 4 later. Bye, guys.